There are many ways to setting up an irrigation system. Today I'm going to show you how I'm setting up mine. So, if you are anything like me, you probably talked yourself out of setting up an irrigation system for your garden multiple times. Let's be honest, irrigation, when you look at it, it seems like a very complicated subject. But I promise you, this stuff is super simple and I'm going to walk you through it step by step. Right now I'm standing in my raised bed area and this is where we are going to set up our irrigation system. The video that you're about to see was filmed in late summer, early fall of 2021, and today it is spring of 2022. Took me about a year to film this video only because every time I tried to film it, it would rain or my baby would wake up. And ironically enough, today it is going to rain. When? I'm not sure. It says it's gonna start at 4. I hope I have some time to finish this video. So I am doing some changes and I'm going to be talking about those changes that I'm doing. Let's talk about the parts and how to know what you need to get. I got these parts off of the Home Depot website. I personally find that buying irrigation parts off of a website is much simpler than going to a store and looking through the parts and scratching your head, standing in the aisles and trying to figure out what part you need and what part goes with what. It is simpler to do it off of a website if you know at least one term of irrigation part, and then the rest just fall right in line. So I don't know about other websites, but on the Home Depot website, and by the way, this is not sponsored, just sharing my experience right here. Off of the Home Depot website, when you do search for a term, the website shows you what part goes with what in the description of the part of each part that you are looking at, and it shows you what you need to use with it. Kind of like it helps you in setting up an irrigation system, and it also, like, sort of at the bottom it shows you after you scroll down underneath the description, and it shows you other parts that you might want to use, and then you click on that and it shows you also like different parts, different I should say brands of the same part, and it shows you what specific size you need, all of it in the description of the product. And this is how I was able to set up my irrigation system to know what parts I need to use with what. So let me show you what I have right here. So right here I have a 1/4-inch soaker hose, and these come in 50 feet rolls like this, and they are about $6 to $12, I think, something like that. They might have gone up in price, I think, I don't know. But anyways, these are cheaper than the drip irrigation. This is why I chose to go with this, and they both have their cons and their pros. I mean, this over time deteriorates, the other one over time starts to clog in the drip zone, in the drip in the parts where it drips. I don't know what term to use. Anyways, I'm by no means an expert. I'm just sharing with you what I'm doing here in my garden, and hopefully this video will help you guys. If you like what you see here, please don't forget to hit that subscribe button, and thank you guys so much for watching. So let's continue. I also have these what's it called? I forgot. I forgot what it's called. It's a Junction thingy that, we'll call it a thingy, right? That hooks up to a 1/2-inch poly tubing. And right here I also have an elbow that hooks to also 1/2-inch poly tubing. And I have two different parts, two different types of elbows. There's this type and there's this type. This one hooks this one you put the tube inside it, and this one goes inside the tube. And you can find tons of different varieties of the same parts, and you can choose which part you want. And this is why irrigation can be so vast, such a vast subject and so different, and everyone will tell you to do a different thing. I've been doing research on this subject for over 2 years now, probably. And this right here is a faucet, basically, that I'm going to hook to each bed, that is going to hook to the poly tubing, probably. Yes, I think that hooks to the 1/2 inch poly tubing, because that's right here, 1/2 inch connection right here. And this is a backflow filter, which is important to have. Now I have another one in a different part of my garden, but I didn't want to be unhooking and hooking this part, so I just decided to just buy the thing. It's like $1, so might as well. And you can hook this to your hose directly, and which I'm going to be doing right here. I'm setting up this irrigation system so that I can later on in the future hook it up to a more complicated irrigation system that will allow me to have different zones, but for now I'm going to use it in a way that allows me to hook it up to a hose, which makes it super convenient for me. So this right here has that capability. This also has that capability, and this is a Psi regulator, which is a pressure regulator, and it's 25 Psi regulator, and that is going to stop your tubing, your 1/4 inch tubing, from bursting. And you know, a lot of people have a problem of the tubing spraying everywhere and bursting open, and that's because you don't have a pressure regulator on it. The pressure regulator is going to control the water flow, and it's going to make it flow at a much more gentle rate that this tubing can handle. So you want to see what kind of pressure your tubing can handle, and you want to go with that. You want to go with the smallest tubing that you have hooked all your irrigation. You want to judge the pressure by that tubing. Now, you probably can hook that specific tubing to that pressure regulator and hook the entire, like the 1/2 inch poly tubing, to a more to a higher pressure regulator that is going to give you maybe like 60 psi or something like that. But that would mean that each tubing, that each bed would have to have its own pressure regulator, and I would rather not do that. I don't know, maybe I'll suffer the consequences later. We'll see. I don't know. But I'm going to try it out this way, and I'll let you guys know what happens. Now these beds are kind of on a slope right here. The beds facing me are a little bit higher, and over here kind of they start going down a little bit, but we'll see. I don't know. I'll let you guys know how this works out later. And I know I'm talking a lot, but there are a lot of parts for setting up a drip irrigation system. Don't let this intimidate you. Like I said, if you go on the website, the website will just help you out tremendously by giving you the description of each part and what part it goes with, what part you need to use it with. Now this right here is a end cap for the poly tubing, the 1/2 inch poly tubing. You squeeze the poly tubing in right here. I don't want to get my finger stuck. And you can also open it up and probably hook it to something else also if you want to later on, if you want to hook it to another tubing or something like that. So this is going to stop the water at the end of the poly tubing. I might later on want to hook it up to my trees, or we'll see. I don't know. I'm not sure. But it's going to end on that side of the of my raised beds. I have more parts, and these parts are for the 1/4 inch tubing. So these right here are a barb connectors, and they go in to the soaker hose, the 1/4 inch soaker hose, to connect them together, or to connect them to other stuff, or to the poly tubing. And these are called Goof Plugs, And let me see if I can get some out for you. I know I have more. Nope, I don't know where they are. Anyways, so basically, here, I'll just open it. Oh, it is open, okay. So there they are. These are called Goof Plugs, and what these do is you just put this at the end of the 1/4-inch tubing, and it stops the water from flowing at the end of the tube, so that this is really hard to show because it's so small. You can also probably like tie the tubing if you want to do that. You could just like get a piece of galvanized metal and just pinch the tubing and then tie it together. You could do that if you don't want to buy this, but really these parts are so cheap, and you get, I think, how many do you get? 10 in each pack, and I have 10 beds over here, and I need 10 of these 1/4-inch tubing, and I know I have more. I have more. It's like Christmas in here. Where are the parts? I'm sure I'm missing something. I don't know. I also forgot to get something to cut the tubing with. Anyways, so this right here, let's bring you a little closer. So this right here is the 1/2-inch poly tubing, and this came in a 50-foot roll. It wasn't that expensive, I would say. I think everything costed about $170, and this is going to allow me $170, and this is going to allow me to hook this raised bed area with my pumpkin patch over here, and probably later on in the future to hook it to the trees so that I can irrigate my fruit trees as well. And this 1/2-inch poly tubing is, here you can see it right here. I don't know if I'll try to take it out a little bit. Here, let's just rip this. Okay, there you go. That's better, right? So this 1/2-inch poly tubing, I'm going to take it along the raised beds, and this is where the water is going to be flowing, and the 1/4-inch tubing is going to go inside the raised beds. And like I said, this is also probably going to go into my pumpkin patch, and I'll probably be putting in punching in a drip. I know I have a hole puncher as well. I don't know where that ended up. I'll find it. I can poke a hole in there and put a drip, like a gallon emitter or whatever, 2-gallon emitter, I don't know, as much as these pumpkins will need. Or I might do something like take a little bit of this 1/4-inch tubing and just put it as a ring around the root ball of the pumpkins. I might do that as well. We'll see. It depends whether I have some left over of this or not. I don't know. So I don't know if I explained what this was. I know I mentioned it, but I don't know if I actually talked about it. This is a backflow preventer, and what this does is that it prevents any gunk, dirt, whatever it is that's in your drip tubing from going into your water system that's connected to your house or to your well, or we have a well, so that's why the well came to mind. But it prevents that stuff from going into your water system and from going into your drinking water and all that. So this end is the end that meets the hose or your drip irrigation or your what's it called, your irrigation system, like a zone thing, or if you have that, or that might even have its own backflow preventer. Those have more complicated parts to them, and this part right here is the part that connects to your tubing like to the, it's going to be connected to the poly tubing, or it's actually going to be connected to the Psi regulator, and then the and then the hose. That's what's going to happen. The Psi regulator is what's going to connect directly to the poly tubing. Anyways, I just wanted to explain that because I thought that I forgot to mention that. You know, scatterbrain. So now I'm just going to grab the parts that I need and that I still need, and we're gonna start setting up the system. Before I even bought any of these parts, I decided to draw a diagram of my vegetable garden, of my raised bed area, to figure out what parts I needed. And I suggest you do the same, just in case if you have any obstacles in your land, or if you have trees or whatever it is, you want to know first the layout of the property, and you want to know this will allow you to know what parts you need. Like for example, I'm going to be teeing off every of the poly tubing at each raised bed, so that will allow me to go up with the poly tubing into the raised bed and connect that poly tubing into a faucet. And then after that I realized that I needed more elbows. So after I bought this stuff, so I went ahead and I bought more elbows, because I forgot that I'm going to be needing an elbow inside the raised bed as well as an elbow outside the raised bed. The elbow outside the raised bed is just going to make it easier for the poly tubing to go straight, to allow me to hook the faucet in, and then the elbow inside the raised bed is going to allow me to take the tubing down, so that I can connect the 1/4-inch hosing to it. So as you can see, drawing it out at first, doesn't have to be a fancy drawing. This is not by any means, this is, you know, full of scribbles, and it's a pencil drawing, but it helped me to figure out what I need. I also figured out that over here on the edge of this raised bed I'm going to need an elbow, and over here I'm going to need an elbow. So it was super helpful for me to figure out how many of each part do I need to buy before I started the process, so I don't have to keep going back and forth to the store or going online trying to purchase the products and then wait for them to arrive and all that stuff. So I hope that this was actually accurate. I'm hoping that I don't have to wait for any more products to come, and I'm hoping that this is I'm going to be able to set it up with ease and without needing anything. So let's start. So I'm going to start the tubing right at this corner over here of my raised bed area, because eventually one day I'm going to be putting a pot over here, and I want to be able to connect the pot to the tubing or to the irrigation system. So that's where we're starting. And every now and then I'm taking a look at this just to make sure that I'm not missing anything and make sure that I have everything figured out. And now my baby woke up, so I gotta go in. So as you can see, I stretched out the tube as best as I can. One person doing this job. This really needs two people to do this job. But my husband is at work. Oh well. Yeah, and I'm going to go and, you know, untangle it and straighten it out first before I actually start, and then we'll start with the next part. Okay. It's so humid, but at least it's not 96 and 95 degrees Fahrenheit. Today it's higher, up 70s, close to 80 degree. Anyways, this is gonna take forever, but at least I untangled it. So I'm going to untwist it now, and I'm going to do this off camera because it's going to take forever, and I'll get back to you guys. So I don't know if you guys can see, I untwisted most of the hose around the area where I'm going to be putting it. Then we went inside for a break, and now we're back out. Hopefully I can actually do something. These bugs always fly right into my eye. Leave me alone. I need a bug zapper. So it's been about a week since I straightened and detangled the poly tubing. That's because we went on vacation and then it just kept raining and raining and raining. The irony, right? When I come to put the irrigation system, it starts raining and it doesn't stop. It's a good thing. Maybe that's God's way of saying, don't worry. So I don't mind that. It's okay. Which was good. I mean, the garden got irrigated when we were out on vacation. When I came out to before we went on vacation, I came out to set up the irrigation system, and it just started raining after I put the baby in bed. It's okay. Now we're gonna do it. She's in bed now. Let's see if I can do this. Also, I might be harvesting the garlic today just so that I can free up the bed for the irrigation system, and I also didn't have the time to water them, and we had a drought in the spring, which is unusual for our area. Normally we have rain non-stop forever. This year we had a drought in the spring, and I think now the drought is over. Obviously it's been raining for almost a week on and off, which is good. But that's why I'm installing the drip irrigation system, you know, because I don't always have the time to come out and water, and hooking it to the hose and leaving it is just the easiest way. Yes, I can put a sprinkler, and I do, but I also don't want weeds growing around the raised beds. I only want to water the raised beds because the weeds are prolific in our area and they just grow everywhere. So I'm trying my best to minimize the amount of weeding as much as possible. So I was trying to see if I ordered an adapter to hook to the poly tubing that allows me to hook it directly to a hose, and it looks like I forgot to do that. So I'm going to try to squeeze in the poly tubing into this hole right here in the Psi Regulator. That was a lot easier than I expected. That's gonna leak. Okay. I need plumber's tape. I'm gonna see if my husband has some, because this goes in very easily, and I'm afraid that's gonna come out also very easily. So I'm gonna see if I have plumber's tape and fix that problem. I'm going to wrap it around this end right here. want to go several times because it seemed super easy. And then I'll cut it and I'll try to fit it in. I want it to be a tight squeeze. Okay, I'm going to stop here. If I need more, I'll add more. Okay, that feels a lot better. Yep. Feel much safer right now. That looks pretty good. Now I am going to connect the Backflow Preventer to the Psi Regulator, and this right here is the part that's going to get connected to the hose. And before I do that, I'm going to put some plumber's tape around it just to prevent leaking. Just a little, not that much. And then just insert it in. And that's not going to go in all the way, but just enough. You know what? I think I'm gonna put some painter's tape on the outside of the poly tubing right here also. Just a little painter's tape, I said. I mean plumber's tape, not painter's tape. And push it in a little. Just 3 times. There we go. I'm going to try to push this in a little bit if I can. This should be good, I hope. If I run into problems, I'll just buy that piece that connects the poly tubing, 1/2-inch poly tubing to the to a hose directly, and that part on the opposite end I'll connect it to the Psi regulator. That's what I have on my other flower bed. I have a 1/4-inch tubing run around the flower bed, which is not the the best thing to do because you're supposed to only run it for 15 feet, and I ran it for 100 foot, I think. 100 feet, sorry. Anyways, so this is a very similar thing. It's just a connector that allows a 1/2-inch poly tubing or whatever you have to be connected to directly to a hose or to these connections right here. It's drizzling right now, and I just finished planting this bed and that bed over there on the other side, the middle one that you see. That bed has onions, and this one has broccoli, or no, sorry, cauliflower, cabbage, and mine there's lettuce. And I just wanted to give you a quick update over here. I ended up getting this hose link adapter to a 1/2-inch tube. It also can work with a 3/4-inch tube, and I connected it to the Psi regulator because when I connected the tubing directly to the Psi regulator, it was coming off loose, and I tried putting in plumber's tape, but that didn't work very well. I ended up taking that out, and I also I switched it with this adapter over here, hose to tube adapter, and it works really good. This is a tight fit over here, and it has this screw end over here where you just screw it on to the Psi regulator on this side. I'm putting dirt all over it. I think it works with 3/4-inch, 1/2-inch, and I'm not sure. I'm covering this over here. Let's see. Covering it with dirt because my hands are full of dirt.
It's hose to drip adapter. It works with 3/4 inch and 1/2 inch or 5/8 inch poly tubing right here.
So you can see this pipe over here runs along the outside of these beds, facing the apiary. What I need to do is actually move it to the other side for two reasons. One, it is going to use a lot less hosing because we are expanding the garden and we need more hosing for the next beds that we are building. And two, because I think that this is going to be a lot of hosing for the water to flow into. Since then, I've also learned that you have to connect the hosing to itself so that you can have the water flow at an efficient rate to all the areas that you are irrigating. If you don't connect it, what happens is as the water reaches the end of the hose, the tubing, less water is going to travel through that tubing as it gets closer and closer to the end of that tubing. So I'm going to create sort of a grid system, and I'm going to be connecting it to itself in several places, and then I'm going to be hooking the end piece also to itself. I initially had a cap that I was going to put it at the end. I probably will do that in the new garden, but not over here, because eventually I think I'm going to have to put some sort of an ending cap. If not, I might be able to connect it back to itself again. We'll see. So let's move this hose, I keep calling it a hose. Let's move this tubing from this side and put it on the opposite side. I'm just going to use my pruning shears to cut over here in the middle, make a cut. It's about right, I think. Right here. There we go. Then I'm going to use this T-coupling over here and connect it to the hose on this side, to the tubing. You kind of have to pinch it a little bit to allow it to get in, and use some muscle. I'm going to do that on both sides. Oops. Just make sure there's nothing in the tubing or in the T-coupling. Come on now. Really needs some muscle. Okay, and then I need to cut a piece of tubing that's going to reach over here and put an elbow. So I have this piece over here. It is longer than the bed itself, and you'll see why in a second. So I have this elbow over here, and I have this valve. With this valve, if it's facing these two ends, it's open. You can see through it. And if it's facing the opposite of these two ends, then it's closed. And you can see, when you look into it, you're going to see the blue color of the valve on the inside, closing the tubing over here. So I need two small pieces to connect this over here to the elbow, because this does not fit into the elbow. I need two small pieces of tubing, and I'm going to be connecting another elbow on the inside. So I'm going to cut two pieces of tubing that are just slightly longer than this piece over here and that piece. They're the same length actually if you look at them. So I'm going to measure it by using the tubing, the valve itself, and I'm going to cut just a few, maybe an inch longer than it, so that I have some room to insert the tubing into the elbow. And I'm going to cut the same length again. And there we go. Actually, I should have cut it like right over here. I kind of messed up on that. That's a little bit too high. I'm gonna do that, I think. Getting it in is the easy part. Getting it out is not. So I'm going to push this down and cut the tubing a little bit over the raised bed. Just like that. Then I'm going to insert in the elbow. I'm going to insert this valve inside this tubing over here. And then I'm going to insert the tubing on this side. So we inserted it into the valve on this side, and then I'm going to insert the tubing this side into the elbow over here. I noticed that if you wiggle it, it gets into the elbow a lot easier in the T-couplings. The same over here. And I need another elbow. Okay, that looks good. Now I'm going to put this piece over here that we cut and insert it into the elbow over here. You kind of quickly run out of muscle. Okay, that's it. And now I'm going to take this end cap over here. It's just basically a tube with this sort of an opening, a cap on it, and if you want you can connect another hose to it on this side. So I'm going to close it back and put this in. Okay, that's in pretty good. You can see now how it fits into the bed. I almost lost my hole puncher. It's so small. Right here I have a hole puncher. It has a fine tip on it, and I'm going to use it to punch holes into the tubing. And I'm going to insert this coupler right here that's going to go into this tubing, and then it's going to receive this tubing over here, so I can insert it in here. Sorry, give you a better view. I can insert it in here, and then we're going to insert it in the tubing over here. So first let's poke that hole into this tubing. So I'm just going to apply some pressure onto the tubing with this hole puncher, and there we go. The hole is in. You see it? And then I'm going to insert this coupler into this hole. And actually what's going to hold the coupler from slipping is this little lip right here on it, on this edge. You can see it. And it's going to prevent leaking also. There we go. It's in. Now I'm going to insert this in here. But first I'm going to cut this. There we go. And I'm going to insert the tubing into the coupler. There. That's it. Okay, I need one more thing. You can see the tubing is now connected, and if I run water into it, it's going to flow in here. Now this right here is a plug. You can see it has one end, it goes into the tubing, and this end sits outside the tubing. And when you insert it into the tubing, it's going to stop the water flow. And you want to put this at the end of your tubing. So here's my tubing, and I'm going to look for the end, which is right here, and then I can insert it here. But I think I'm going to measure and see how much tubing I need for this bed. I'm going to cut the excess off and then insert this. I did not want to insert these staples all the way down because we have cardboard down, and I wanted to make sure that where I insert them is exactly where they're going to go, because I don't want to create any holes into the cardboard, because then all the weeds would start popping up. So to put this end cap, you just insert this tip over here, the pointy tip, into the end cap, into the hosing, like that, and it's done. Just quickly coming out over here just to let you know, guys, if you are new here, don't forget to hit that subscribe button and the bell to receive notifications of whenever I upload new videos. I think I'm going to continue the rest of these beds without you guys because it is about to rain, So I just need this done. I know our area gets a lot of rain, but we still need some irrigation because last year we actually had a drought during the spring, and in the summer it gets pretty hot. I have to constantly water them, you know, hot as in it can reach up to 100 degrees over here. Might not be as hot for some areas, but it is enough for drying the soil. And we get about 100 degrees temperatures for about 2 to 3 weeks in the summer, and outside of that it's around 80 degrees, so it's still hot enough to dry the temperature, to dry out the surface of the soil, and not just to dry out the soil. And I want to make sure that the plants are going to be happy and healthy and producing as best as they can. So I'm going to continue the rest without you before it starts raining. So before it rains, I just want to give you a quick update on what I did. I set up all the beds, so now all 10 beds have drip irrigation in them, or soaker hoses in them. In the future I will be updating these into drip instead of soaker hoses, but soaker hoses are a lot cheaper than drip tubing. That's why I went with them. And you can see over here, so you can see on this end I ended up creating a grid, and I put a T-coupler over here. I cut this tubing and I put a T-coupler in it, and then I cut it on this end over here and I put a tubing, and you can see it connecting from there. And I wanted to do the same. Oh, and I cut a piece that would fit in here, and then I just kind of stapled it with a landscape staple in the middle because it was bowing out. Eventually we're going to be covering all the irrigation with mulch, but for now that I need to know what's happening. And I want to do the same with the T-couplers over here and also over there. So let me talk to you a little bit about this over here. So you saw the other elbows that I was using. I also bought these elbows. I'm sure I talked about them earlier in the video, but honestly it's been a year and I totally forgot what I said, and I didn't watch the video yet. So these elbows were a lot easier to use than the other elbows. They needed a lot less force. You can see my hands are so super red, and I'm pretty sure I'm going to end up getting calluses over here and here because it was so hard to push this kind of fitting. So I think in the future I'm going to be using this type. Like I said, I'm sure I mentioned what kind it was in the beginning of the video. If I didn't, I'll try to find it, and I'll try to link all these things that I've used over here in the description box for you guys. But these were just a breeze to put in comparison to the other stuff, and I did the same in that bed over there. I'm not sure why I didn't buy these instead of the other ones. I guess I was nervous that they might not work, and maybe I wanted to try them, so I only bought 2 small. They come in, like, I think a bag of 4, so I only bought 2 bags of these. I think I'm gonna see if I can find the same for the T-couplers and for just all the joints. I do like the faucets, or tap, whatever you call it. Those are cheap and pretty simple to use. Like I said, it doesn't matter which way you put it in. You notice, I think I probably have it different on all of them, but basically, if I can figure it out, there you go. Now it's off. So I did not set up these beds because I will, right before I plant them, I might want to amend them with some fertilizer first. But if I want to turn on the water now for the beds that are planted, like over here I planted some sweet peas, and over here I have garlic, and in here I have some fava beans and sweet peas. So if I want to turn on the water for any specific bed, I can by just simply turning on the faucet, and I can shut it off on the beds that I am not I don't have planted, because if I don't have the faucet there and I don't have anything planted, it's going to get irrigated and it's going to encourage weed growth, and that's what I don't want. So yeah, just wanted to show you that. And also in the end over here, so the hose extends over here. Eventually I will be connecting it to these beds and over there in that area and to the trees. I'm going to be creating a grid everywhere just to make sure that the water is going to flow properly. If it's too much for the system, what I might do is create a grid for this area along with the trees and a separate grid for the raised beds over here. We'll see how it works. For now, I'm going to try to connect it all together, but I ran out of the tubing and everything that I need, and the T couplings and all that. So I'm going to be doing the same for all these, and I'm going to put probably like a circular... I'm just going to connect a soaker hose right around each tree and just kind of wind it around the base of the tree. Drizzling, I also have the irrigation system now running, and you can see it's working great. And on this bed too, you can see the soil is wet, not just from the drizzling. The drizzling really doesn't get the soil that wet. You could see the difference over here between a little dry soil and the wet soil. And when I leave it on for about an hour, it's going to soak up all the soil. And I planted directly next to the drip irrigation, next to the soaker hose, so that the plants could get the water directly. I could, if I see that the onions are too far apart from each other in the rows, I could always stick something in between them if I want to. But that's not a video about the onions. I just want you how the drip irrigation is working. I'm also going to be linking this part over here to that bed over there. I'm sure I mentioned it earlier, but I'm just mentioning it now. You can see over here also, everything is working great. So I still have a few beds that I need to put up the tubing, the 1/4-inch tubing in, but I didn't put it in until I'm ready to plant them. I'm going to be planting some stock in this bed over here on this side, and some spinach and stuff like that. So I have the stock over here. They're not, this tray did not do so well for me, because I think I might have over fertilized it once and it just kind of stunted the growth of all of them. And I didn't really thin anything or transplant them to like repotted them or anything, but because I ran out of time. But that's okay, not a big deal. They're going to be going in the ground soon, and I'm going to be covering almost everything, because whenever we have frost, because we do get some low temperatures. We are right now in April 26th. We still sometimes get some really low temperatures, and I want to make sure that when those low temperatures come, I have protection. So I got some more of this wire, high gauge wire. I think it was, if I remember, what was it? It might have been 9. I think it might have been 9 gauge coiled wire. You can find that anywhere. I got the first one, I got it from Grower's Solution, but the shipping was insane when I went to get it again, so I got the next set from Home Depot, and it's just as good. I'm going to be putting them up in most of the beds where I plant so that I can cover them and make sure they have protection from frost. This one, you can see I have one that's really big and ones that are smaller, but that will work. That's okay, not a big deal. And these hold up really well, even though that one was bent because I was planting over here. But you can see I have the fava beans over here, and I have the frost protection over it, and they're doing great. And right now they're getting water, and I also have peas planted in here, and they're starting to sprout. In a couple days we're going to be having some frost, so I probably would want to cover these up also. Well, actually it's going to be 32 degrees, so that's not a big deal. For peas can handle that. They can handle up to 28 degrees Fahrenheit. So that's all. I just wanted to kind of show you how the drip irrigation, or it's not really drip, how the irrigation system is working. and you can see I have it open on the beds that I want it to run in, and I have it shut like that on the beds that I don't want it to run in. And it's working great. And even though it's drizzling, I'm still having it run because the drizzles are not really enough to moisten the soil, because this compost that we got, I'm really disappointed with it. It's not good quality at all. It's sandy. I don't know what they have in there, but I'm never buying compost from there again. That's for sure. I'm gonna try my best to make our own compost. I'm not sure we can make enough, but I'm hoping that we will be able to find a better dealer for whenever we want to buy more compost in the future. We'll see, or we can make our own compost, hopefully. I don't know. We'll see how that works out. Yep, and look at this bed over here. I think this is really beautiful. I might be adding in some flowers that would drape around the edges. I'm not sure. We'll see. But look at it. Isn't that gorgeous? I have some red cabbage express on this side, and I have miner's lettuce on both sides, and the purple Sicily cauliflower, and one red cabbage express in the middle, and then it repeats again with the miner's lettuce and the red cabbage express. Thank you guys so much for watching. I hope you learned something new over here. I hope this video was helpful to you, and hopefully you now know how to put your own irrigation system and to set it up. It's pretty simple. Again, it requires some muscles, and last year it wasn't that expensive. Now, I don't know. I haven't checked the prices yet, but it shouldn't be. I mean, these things are, I picked the cheapest things, but also good quality. Not necessarily the cheapest as in the cheapest quality, but the cheapest as in good quality but cheaper price. And if you guys want to learn how to build your own DIY cattle panel trellis, we also have a video on that. I'll be leaving it in the link over here, and you can go ahead and watch that video. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next time.